If you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball.
What?
Two Movies Enter, the podcast where we put two movies fighting each other in a bit of a death match. I suppose there's no kind of real middle ground on death matches, is there? It's not like a meme match or a kind of paralysis match.
No, Thunderdome. How about that?
Yeah, Well,
it still is.
But yeah, did Mad Max didn't kill people in the Thunderdome?
Do they not?
No, he just kind of bet up Blaster, I suppose, and then he got Master to give him oil or something. But yeah, this week's show, it's two movies that we tried to put a bit of effort into thinking about, kind of movies that were similar. So it's Dodgeball versus Baseketball. Dodgeball, of course, Ben Stiller's movie with Vince Vaughn being a lovable loser. I sound like an AI generated text.
I know you do.
But he's like Average Joe Jim getting shut down. It's basically like the Mighty Ducks or something like that.
It's like the little guy against the big corporation.
Yeah, the general kind of thing.
Yeah.
Then where Baseketball is directed by David Zucker, who would have done the Naked Gun movies, and as far back as I think he was involved with Airplane as well. But yeah, that's Trey Parker and Matt Stone, who created South Park. They create a game called Baseketball, which is a mixture of basketball and baseball in kind
and their own sort of weird rules as well.
Yeah, and it becomes like one of the biggest sports because all other major sports people have abandoned them, and it's about them kind of getting taken in by. I don't know, they're trying to maintain their pure vision.
Yes. Like this is a game that you used to play with your friends. It's not some big corporation.
But at the same time, it's the typical sports kind of story. Because I was originally going to say Basketball versus Major League, where I thought they had a bit where it's like they're just like a bunch of misfits. misfits.
The misfits.
Trying to win the league, and then when they win the league, they win everything. Kind of a thing, which is the same in Basketball, Dodgeball. But anyway, what we're going to do is start by trying things a little bit differently this time around, where we have a bit of I got it off Medium, as it not a medium.
Yeah, the spirits are talking to me.
Yeah, where it's like the 10 essential things for scoring a movie.
Things.
Yeah, elements. Criteria, for reviewing a movie. So we thought that because we just kind of get caught up and it's more on preference. Whereas, of course, this is going to be preference as well. It's not like this is going to be a scientific fucking thing, right? But this might make it seem a little bit more. So for the 10 elements, it's plot, attraction, which is the entertainment value, theme, acting, dialogue, cinematography, editing, soundtrack, directing, and the it factor. So we'll go through those and we'll mark each.
Contrast and compare.
Yeah, and then whoever has got the biggest score at the end, they are the winner. If that makes sense.
None whatsoever, but let's get going.
Yeah, so we'll get going anyway with this. So I suppose we'll start with, we're after pretty much describing what the films are. And if you haven't heard of these movies, why would you be just randomly clicking in on a thing where it's two movies that you've never heard of fighting each other?
Maybe to learn about which film is better.
Yeah, I suppose, maybe you could have heard of Basketball and you're like, I guarantee you probably Dodgeball would definitely be the one that most people would
have
know.
heard of.
I don't know.
It's not very well known.
Yeah, I think Basketball kind of flopped pretty hard. Yeah, it would have came out just, I think, when South Park was starting off as well.
Yeah, so obviously it wouldn't have had the same sort of fame or cash or anything like that as it would have had a couple of years into South Park.
And I think the two guys did it because they thought, well, look, South Park is going to get cancelled at some stage, so we should. Because the two were pursued an acting career and they had a couple of movies out before that, Cannibal the Musical, Orgasmo. I think that was it. I think there might have been another film. But they were pretty much going. And I think the two came from the Trauma
kind of
side of things as well.
Okay. Didn't know that.
I could be completely and utterly wrong with that. I know James Gunn did.
That's totally wrong.
Yeah. But I know when you're talking about famous people that did it, but yeah, no one ever envisioned South Park becoming the monster that it became with it. So yeah, in their movies, they were pretty much playing it. And as well, according to Wikipedia, that source of all knowledge, there was originally going to be a TV show. That's what David Zucker wanted with Chris Rock.
Oh.
But it never got past the pilot phase, so they did it as a movie instead.
Did not know that.
I think Chris Farley maybe.
Oh.
Maybe it was Chris Farley and not Chris Rock.
Oh, that was kind of like two Chris's.
Yeah, maybe it was both of them.
Yes.
Because they did get along well.
I don't know, do they?
I don't know, we'll say it. But yeah, I suppose we're looking at the plot, the story arc, and the plausibility. But the plausibility wise, I suppose Dodgeball is a bit more plausible than two guys playing basketball in their
Front yard
garden.
and getting picked up by,
sports thing. See, the whole thing with basketball, it was like there was a thing going on at the time where it was all about major sports with our football players, American football players, celebrating too much, and so that was a big kind of a thing.
Yeah, the elaborateness of it was kind
and
of...
people got sick of people switching teams and teams moving from places.
Yeah, people being able to be bought, like, and traded, like cards and such,
Yeah, and so this is kind of a reaction to that. Well, that's the plot device for basketball doing. So like the two guys, they're losers, and it is the thing, they're not really likable.
No, they're like the sort of they're actually like real life Beavis and Butthead kind of a thing. They're like eternal losers, eternally teenagers, still stuck in that teenage mentality. Sort of they meet people that they went to high school with, and they're all like, Jesus Christ, you guys haven't changed a bit, and they're like, oh, thanks.
Yeah, but we'll get into that with the character kind of thing.
Yes.
But it's they're not like lovable losers. So it's
they're just losers who just hang around with themselves.
But there is a story arc, I think, in it where it does with the whole thing where they get into it. You follow them from being the losers with no money, and then they're like these sports personalities with no money. The guy that helped them, their father figure, dies. Eric Borgnine, famous for his role in The Simpsons when they go camping, and so then you're following them going through that, and
it's
there's a
kind
bit of character.
It's a bit of like the Wayne's World type thing, like where it's like their own little thing, and sort of the big corporation swoops in and tempts them with offer of money.
Yeah,
and it's do they succumb to the temptation, and what happens when they become corrupted?
Yeah, and then I suppose story arc over on Dodgeball. It's the gym is being closed down.
I think there's actually more of a solid story arc there, because it starts off with, they establish like Globo Gym, which is Ben Stiller's gym, as like, this big shiny corporation that's totally soulless. And then they have Average Joe's, which is all sort of like the likeable, the losers again, I suppose. And of course, the big corporation are trying to shut down the little gym so they can have it as a parking lot. So in order to raise the money, they have to come up with some madcap scheme basically to try and raise it, and of course, because one of the characters is into the Ocho, which is all the unusual weird sports like ironing and all that kind of stuff, they decide to go with Dodgeball. And of course the arc then follows them learning how to play Dodgeball in the first instance, and moving through all the different levels of it.
I suppose it feels quicker as well, doesn't it? Dodgeball feels more polished, which of course it's going to be, but I suppose at the same time David Zucker, Naked Gun were massive films. It's not as if David Zucker was some sucker coming in and doing things, but Dodgeball just feels...
Well, it all hung together, I think, nearly better, because like they're watching this, say, instructional video from the 50s, Patches O'Houlihan, who kind of like brought Dodgeball to fame, and then he shows up and he's going to be their coach, and there's through lines, I suppose, really, in the whole story arc,
So if we're doing this, do you think we should give like a point to whoever the winner is based on?
I think so,
instead
rather
of like
than 8 out of 10 or something like that, because then it gets into maths, and maths is hard.
Yeah. So who would you give the plot to then?
I give the plot to Dodgeball.
Yeah, I think I would as well, yeah.
While there is a bit of a plot to Basketball, there's a lot of random stuff in it that makes absolutely no sense.
Yeah. But then on to the next one, where it's like attraction, which is the premise or entertainment value. I think this one is a bit harder.
It is, because they're both entertained in very different ways. You have, I suppose, in basketball, one of the prime rules of the sport is that you can try and distract your opponent when they're going to shoot a hoop. So they're coming up with ever more disgusting and vile gags. So there's all these really quick sight gags going on the whole time.
It's like, I know it's not meant to be realistic anyway, but it's just... it gets a bit. For me, I really liked it at first. Looking at this time, I found it a bit tiresome.
Yeah.
Some of the
It
things.
is a little bit juvenile, I suppose.
Yeah,
isn't
especially
it?
there was one bit where it goes on for like a song, and it just shows all the different bits. And it's the best one out of it is where Trey Parker does the Cartman impersonation. And,
Yeah, he's
like, this
basically
would have
doing
been
South Park voices
yeah,
before they were known as South Park
yeah,
voices.
and even there was a lot of Randy Marsh.
Yeah.
In bits with it, and for the first time looking at it as well, I'm seeing this a lot. I've seen this a fair few times since it came out. Same with Dodgeball. Like I think we've seen Dodgeball a fucking ton of times, but I really saw it as being a David Zucker film. I think I had it all used to have it in my head. Oh, it's their movie. They did, because there's so many elements of them stamped all over it because of their acting in it, but. This time around, look at it, there was a lot of stuff going on in the background. The way people reacted was very much like the straight men in like naked going or an airplane when they see something happening and they're just kind of like, what the fuck is going on? There's one bit where like the guy who they keep calling a little bitch, Twitch, and it's where he's in a hot tub and it's kind of swirling around like a whirlpool, and there's just like people looking on as if kind of like, what the hell is going on? Like normal people actually showing
Usual
up in a
reaction
cartoon.
too,
Yeah. So it's, but then when you go to Dodgeball, I think Dodgeball just has a warmth about it, which
it
the
does,
other
because
thing is
you're
lacking.
rooting for the underdog and I do think it's because the other two in basketball, they're a little bit juvenile and a little bit sort of, as I said, Beavis and Buttheady. Whereas a lot of the characters over here are the lovable losers.
Yeah.
They all like. There's the sort of the nerd who is madly in love with the cheerleader, but he's too clumsy and too nervous to do it. And there's a guy who's a pirate. There's sort of the overweight middle-aged guy who has this like mail order bride who absolutely hates him. All of these kind of things. And it's just watching them sort of like rise up through the ranks and trying to pull together and overcome this absolute giant dickhead that owns the other gym.
Well, it's everyone is a dickhead in basketball, I think. Whereas it's just White Whitman, kind of Ben Stiller's character in White Goodman, who's at White Whitman. What? Where did I get that from?
Is it?
No, it's Goodman, but he's the asshole in it. But it's just there's all the stuff in basketball is more like punching down, and it's a lot of kind of like nastiness.
There's the usual sort of one of the characters is it's one of the main three, I suppose. What's his name? Can't remember.
Twitch or something like that.
The actual main actor. But again, he's just this very small, very weedy guy, and it's like there's an awful lot of gags around that. There's an awful lot of gags just around people's, I don't know, sort of abilities and stuff like So it is a little bit of its time, I suppose.
But even with it, I'd say if some of the stuff was funny, you could get. But like, there's some of the things in it that it's just not. I don't know.
It's insulting for the sake of insulting. I think. Yeah.
Like
it's just kind of shock value rather than anything else. Yeah.
Even stuff, there's one of the things about like, oh, I hear your mother is deaf, and he's like, my mother is dead, you asshole, and he was like, oh, that's why she wasn't moving so much when I was fucking her. And it kind of got like, it's funny the first time you hear it, but entertainment wise it's whereas I think with Dodgeball, it's every time Ben Stiller shows up, you kind of go, oh god, and even there's something likable about it because it's Ben Stiller.
It is, yeah. I mean, he's playing the typical Ben Stiller character, where he's like a little ball of rage and totally arrogant and sort of center of his own universe, I suppose. And everyone.
But just some of the matchup that comes out where it's like, like fatness being a disease, like necrophilia.
Exactly. You've made me bleed my own blood.
Yeah, it's because he's likable because he's Ben Stiller, and it's fun seeing Ben Stiller playing. Someone that's
such
horrible and unredeemable asshole with it.
But again, there is that one small element of the backstory where you see why he is the way he was, because he was incredibly obese back in the sort of year. That's why he did the whole Globo Gym thing, because he struggled and he got himself down to like skinny and super muscly and all the rest. So now he's like, he has these moments of temptation where he's like trying to give himself shock aversion therapy when he's looking at cake or pizza.
But you kind of get the feeling that he probably always was an asshole.
Oh god, yeah, I'm sure he was an asshole when he was fat.
Because he just treats people like shit in it. But it's entertaining. Like, I don't know, like, Matt Stone comes across as horrific in. There's just every time he comes on, I don't know, me personally, I kind of go, ugh. I don't know, there's something about the character and probably him playing the character. There's funny bits in it,
Oh god, yeah.
but there's just, I don't know, rewatching it, I kind of go, you know, if I had to look at the two of them again, I'd look at Dodgeball.
Oh yeah,
Probably
absolutely.
again, because Dodgeball, I think, is more entertaining,
Yeah.
kind of like more, you know, on that thing. I think there's a lot more going on in Dodgeball, even though I think the premise to Baseketball is more convoluted, but there's more to it that they probably put more work into it, whereas like Dodgeball is just the Mighty Ducks,
Yeah.
where, you know.
But there's
But that's
yeah.
sometimes works. It should be like sometimes a plot of a movie should be able to just
describe it in a sentence rather than well then this and then that and because of that then this.
Like The Crow is just, it's a simple revenge movie,
Yeah.
but it's all the different elements that are thrown into it. A lot of westerns are the same story over and over again, just the elements change it. That's when people love John Wick. I think we went through a phase with movies for a long time where things were getting overly and like some of the A20, as much as I like some of the A24 movies, I think some of the movies just went a little bit too much up their own arse, and they were trying to sell it as like, oh, this is like a zombie movie but with kind of added depth and this and that to it, where it's like, you know,
It can't just be a zombie movie.
you look at Returned or Night of the Living Dead, the first, say, proper modern zombie movie.
There's a lot of other themes in that
There's
as well.
an awful
going on.
lot, but you
Yeah.
can still just say it's
It's a zombie
movie.
movie.
That's
Yeah.
it. Which most zombie movies are. There's a lot
Yeah.
more to it. Whereas I think sometimes you can overcomplicate it, and I think Basketball probably overcomplicated itself with,
Yeah, trying to pull in too many elements.
yeah.
Possible.
Whereas with the simplicity of Dodgeball,
Yeah.
it leaves it open for the jokes to come out.
Absolutely. And I suppose with that thing, they have the simple premise, but they actually have an awful lot going on because you get to meet each team as they go through each wave of the competition. And there's, you know, there's the usual, oh no, will they, won't they? And, you know, the disaster befalls them and they try and overcome. And it's your typical kind of like.
Yeah. Well, even
plotline.
the start of it gets into, like, straight away on Dodgeball, what the story is. You follow Vince Vaughn in the morning through the credits. Whereas I think it's about 15 or 20 minutes, like a Dodgeball, where they're just, like, giving backstory.
Yeah.
Or not Dodgeball, Basketball, where it's just backstory and,
And throw in
exposition,
jokes
yeah.
and stuff, yeah. Whereas, yeah, you're right. The minute you hit into Dodgeball, it's like you get the Adford logo, Jim, which tells you what Ben Stiller's, you know, sort of corporation about, and then you get Vince Vaughn, who is average Joe. Like,
And you understand who Vince Vaughn is straight away, just going out, he's getting phone calls about all your electricity is being cut off, and
Yeah,
he's like brushing his
foreclosures and
teeth
all
with
the
like
rest of
milk chocolate and
yeah.
you know, you kind of get, and he's just like very relaxed, and he hasn't let anyone pay memberships in.
And
He
you
just doesn't
actually
care.
meet all those characters almost straight away as well,
Yeah.
because as he's walking through the gym in the morning, they all come over to have a quick word with him, and it's like, oh yeah, no worry, you know, he has a little interaction with him that shows you, okay, this fella thinks he's a fucking pirate, no, this is like some weird nerd, and this guy has no clue what's going on. You know, you have all of those characters there straight away. But
So,
yeah.
I suppose on entertainment value then.
Yeah, well, they're both entertaining, but I think Dodgeball would definitely be sort of the, I
think,
suppose the
yeah.
tentpole one, really, that you could go to a cinema and have a whole audience
think, yeah, and
enjoy.
as well, when it
Basketball,
does
I think,
come-
is very niche.
Yeah, entertainment value I think should kind of go into rewatchability as well. Like, this is, stick with us when we're going through this, because we're going to change stuff on it. I think the entertainment value should be like, for the score in future, entertainment value, rewatchability.
Yeah, I suppose. I love that you're actually updating it here.
Yeah,
as
I'll
you're doing
update
it.
as we go. The listener can help.
Yes,
We're going on
shape the-
shouting at it now, kind of like, oh,
Oh, put it back to
don't
the other
change
thing.
it.
My God. So yeah, so I would think I'd agree with you. Dodgeball wins out on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So on to our next topic, which is the theme. I think both teams are well, they're not really. I think when you want to try and get into the two films, the theme of Dodgeball, I think, is more about friendship. But
No, I think basketball is very
baseball
much...
is friendship.
Yeah. That's what I was going to say. I was actually going to say basketball is very much about, like, you know, treasuring your friends and, you know, sort of not giving
Yeah.
up on your values and your morals.
And tempted, but they
being
do
loyal.
give up on their
They do, but at the same point, you know, it's this whole thing, oh, it's my team. And it's like, oh, I always thought it was our team. And then it's like, oh,
They
well,
share
they
it,
share
and then the
decision.
others go fucking off the rails and turn into fucking assholes with it, and like they don't redeem themselves. They just win.
But in which one?
In basketball, basketball. This is gonna
Yeah,
get
but
confused.
they do actually, like, as I said, like,
They don't stop selling clothing because one of the things that the founding principles of basketball was that there would be no team trade and that money wouldn't be the thing with it, and that no one would have say
kind of endorsements. And
endorsements.
stuff, yeah.
That's the word, yeah. But they still have all that at the end.
Yeah, but they still try to go back to the whole thing of like, well, it was us two friends or us three friends started it, so it is. They go back and they realise the value of friendship.
Well, there's that callback as well where they do the whole fucking thing. There's the first games that they won, when the first final games that they won, they have like a move that they pull off, and they do the same thing with this one, where it's like, so that's a call back to like,
I'd say it's a big trope in all, but like, I mean, you look at Blades of Glory, they have all that, like they have the big move that wins the competition and they pull it off at the end to win the competition, this kind of thing.
But they did it. Oh no, they fucked it up the first time round. They lost. Did they, or did they win? I can't remember. But it's that's not important.
Way to go with your memories there.
So team of basketball, you're saying it's about friendship.
I do. I think it's mainly about friendship and return to your roots, because it was always like, oh, this is a game that we started off in our front yard and now it's become this rural thing. So I do think they try to return to that. I think the theme is, okay, does fame change it? Does money change it? Do you still stay loyal to your friends, or do you leave them behind? And I think they do end up holding on to their friendship.
And then with Dodgeball.
With Dodgeball, again, there is that loyalty and friendship, but it's about saving the underdog, I think.
Yeah, it's more the underdog. It's triumphing over
fighting
or it's like the weirdo or
the outcasts and all the rest, the freaks and the geeks, I suppose. They managed to sort of bond together and triumph over this big faceless corporation, Yeah. So it's always like, root for the little guy, root for the underdog. And like, you don't have to have tons of money to be able to like succeed in life as well.
I'm sure with other movies we'd be able to get into the teams a lot more.
That's what I was saying, the teams, these are not very deep movies to be able to, it's not like Citizen Kane or anything like that, where you're like, oh, well, the mise en scene and, the underlying tone and the motifs and all the rest, but this is very much, it's like fart
Well,
guys.
I suppose with Dodgeball as well, it's about believing in yourself, because all these people, when they get beaten by Girl Scouts,
the
first match
round
that they have, and they're constant, and then when they do get belief in themselves, that's when Patches comes along. He's kind of trying to give them belief, like Stephen Root's character.
Yeah.
Whereas like the wife with the L is for, and he's like, L is for love, and they're like, I don't think that. And then when he gets the confidence, when he finds his anger, he becomes good. Same with Justin Long's character. He's like always falling things. He can never catch things.
Yeah, really clumsy. And then he finds his confidence.
And he becomes a cheerleader. Yeah. But think poor old Pirate Steve.
Yeah.
He gets told you're not a pirate. And he just fucks off and he's not in the finale. And then he shows up at the very end and he's like all normal.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, would you like to share with the 5 million wins? And he's like,
yar. Yes, but as well, I suppose there's the usual plot there as well. Not so much in the theme, I suppose, of like love and all that kind of stuff can drive you. Not so much in basketball, because it's more or less like women are sort of interchangeable and throwaway.
It's like, I don't like using the term misogynistic, but
it is. It's a little bit. Yeah, it hovers right on that sort of.
That women are kind of objects.
Yeah, they're just like sex dolls, basically.
And like they both have cheerleaders in it. But like they're in very skimpy clothes in base, and the
thing is, they may be in skimpy clothes in Dodgeball, but it's not about the kind of look at how sexy they are. It's like, say for example, they have the pimp gear and all the rest. It's more like a little bit of a sort of a laugh about things, There's a bit of a difference, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, as well, there's no women in the basketball teams. The women are just there as the cheerleaders.
Yeah, as setters and such,
there's women in the dodgeball teams.
Yeah, and some of the women are the best players there as well.
Yeah.
The star players. Like, I mean, one of the over, as I said, because it's sort of a love arc or whatever. You have White, and you have what is his actual name? It's not Average Joe.
Vince Vaughn.
Yeah, his name in the film. I know his name as an actor.
Oh, jeez. I don't know. Yeah.
The guy that Vince Vaughn plays, my God, our memories are gone to absolute pot. But they're basically, the two of them are sort of, their love interest is the same woman, who is the woman sent from the bank to look at the financials.
Pete LaFleur.
Yes, I had LaFleur in my head, but I was like, that's not his name. They're both sort of, hankering after her, and it's like, will they, won't they, and which one of them, obviously, it's Pete LaFleur is going to win out in the end, but as it turns out, he kind of doesn't win out because it's a slight plot twist on that whole thing as well, you know. But as I said, I think as regards that, Dodgeball, I think overall probably has the better team because it has probably more teams there as well.
Yeah, it is.
You know, it's a bit more varied. It's not as
it's kind of nicer.
Yeah.
As well, because it is. I don't think they're successful with kind of like, you know, the friendship thing, because they do kind of fuck each other over with it, and they kind of fuck, but then they just make up on for the finale and stuff, and I don't know, I think we just, and as well, I think Dodgeball has a clear identity of what kind of film it is, whereas Baseketball is a bit all over the fucking place at times.
That's what I mean. I think it's more like a sketch comedy kind of hung together rather than
which is like a Zucker kind of a thing, but like whereas with the Naked Gun it fits in more, but like with this it is pretty much
it's
all
a bit
over the place.
I think,
So, and even like the placement of like when they do the montage of them, they do that near the end, whereas like this would have been probably better at the start to explain the mechanics of the game to show it. Yeah. So Dodgeball gets
3-0 so far. My God, come on, Baseketball.
So acting.
Well, I have to say, yes, just even on voice acting alone, I think Trey Parker is fairly out of the box there, isn't he? Yeah, I think that's a huge range as regards that, like, you know.
But this is the thing about it. I think the character is all over the place because I don't know. He's quite obviously the more likable out of the two.
But he's still a dickhead.
Yeah, he's still a dick. And then near the end, he goes off and he, like, in Cambodia or wherever, where they're making the sports goes, where he...
Yeah, he's like, no, we have to bring up the standards. We can't have, like, you know, child slave labour making our clothes and our balls and stuff like that. That's one
of the things, actually, I think surmises things pretty much as well, kind of like about how successful the two films are. It's when you're talking about the characters, we didn't even mention the bad guy out of Baseketball yet, which was Robert Vaughn. He was in like The Man from U.N.C.L.E. and all that, and he's pretty much the same as the bad guys out of fucking The Naked Gun, where he plays it seriously, but he's just kind of like, what?
He's just like, can't believe the stupidity and the outrageousness of the, you know, sort of the other characters, how they're acting around.
But he's very forgettable with it, like even to the point that I didn't even consider him as part of the movie, like plot, until just there. Whereas like Ben Stiller's.
Oh, he's one of the main characters. He is hilarious, and even though he's such a horrible character, he is still very likeable. And like you said, you look forward to him showing up on screen because you know it's going to be hilarious.
He's defined like nowadays when you look back at Vince Vaughn, he's played a lot of the same characters, but at that stage he wasn't really doing, like, Vince Vaughn would have been known for the remake of Psycho. And you know, he would have been a serious actor, and what was it, not Swingers,
Wedding Crashers and stuff.
Well before Wedding Crashers. Oh fuck, it was Slackers.
Yes, and that is essentially that sums up the Vince Vaughn kind of character. He's this bit of a likeable slacker, you know. He's very eloquent, and he's very kind of quick-witted and what's the word, eloquent, I suppose, as well. But he essentially is a complete loser at all other aspects of life. He's shit financials.
Like acting wise, and like the character is likeable. There's never, even when he's going through the bit where he's like he's going to throw the money game, and run, he meets Lance Armstrong, and Lance Armstrong is saying, oh well, after I survived cancer and fucking this and that, I went on to win the Tour de France 5 times. What's your excuse for what are you dying from?
Yeah, why are you quitting, kind of a thing? And the pep talk peps him up.
And he's like, shame.
Yeah. But it is, I mean, the characterization, I suppose, and the acting, each of the characters within Dodgeball has their own very defined kind of story arc. They're instantly recognizable as your archetype, you know, sort of like you have sort of the young nerd who was, you know, sort of madly in love with a girl but totally clumsy.
And Justin Long, I'm fucking delighted he's after having such a career that he's after having. Anyone who hasn't seen Barbarian, I don't think people should even be doing reviews or spoiler reviews for it right now, because I'd imagine there's quite a lot of people who still haven't seen that movie. And at some side, it plays up on Justin Long's likability factor perfectly to have him as a fucking horrible piece of shit. But it's just, you know, he's fantastic in that. Even fucking, I don't like the walrus thing, that tusk that Kevin Smith did. I thought that's fucking awful, but he's brilliant in it.
Yeah. And he's like, I mean, that's any film he's been in, he's been excellent, like, you know. But it is, I think, with the acting, I think, again, what I said, Trey Parker, Matt Stone, they are hilarious, and it is sort of like a showcase for the two of them, I suppose, really. Most of the other characters and actors in it are kind of forgettable and kind of not particularly, they're a bit all over the place. Whereas
Even the love interest in it, she's very throwaway, that she's like the head of a children's charity.
Yeah, that's it. And again, it's a bit bland as well. And it sounds, God, I mean, I know we're talking about it here, it sounds like we hate basketball and love dodgeball.
Love basketball. Look at basketball. It is a good movie, but it's just when you're comparing it to dodgeball.
Absolutely, that's it. And I mean, I have a huge soft spot for the two guys because, you know, we've been huge South Park fans for years.
When they did South Park the movie and it did well, it was just like, I think people that were fans of South Park, fans of them, it was big, what the fuck is happening? I know, yeah. And it was just like this fucking joke on the world or something. And then with Team America as well, where they were all being like critically acclaimed, yes. Sorry, my brain is literally destroyed. Where it is just, you know, it was just this thing, was like, what the fuck is going on? Like?
And like, this is, as I said, we were fans of South Park from the get-go, and like, you know, we were such fans at the time that we played music from the soundtrack of South Park film at our wedding. And a lot of very confused relatives, like, why is there someone called Uncle Fucker on the radio? I don't know what's going on. But as I said, it just sounds like we're favouring dodgeball. It's just, it wins out on certain points, but that's because I think basketball is so scattershot.
With this podcast going forward, there's going to be some hard kind of ones. There's going to be a spoiler one. I'm still trying to figure out if we should do it, because putting like two great films, it's like putting Near Dark up against Lost Boys.
Oh no, what are you going to do? Well, I know which one will win out for you, just preference wise.
I don't know. They are, but you know, so this is, so it's like they're both good movies. We're not going to be we'll probably throw two shit movies together as well
at some stage, but it's just to see which edges who out in what sort of arenas, I suppose, you know. But as I said, that's not to say that one film is inherently better than the other. And
like, say, getting back to the acting, I don't think there's anyone that's bad in Dodgeball. But then when you go outside of the two lads with basketball, that's
what I'm saying. There's no one really memorable or anything like that, where there is a huge amount of character development in the other one. You have all the characters from the different teams, and okay, I know they're a bit maybe one dimensional or something, but you know instantly, like, you know, this is the East European lady who's used to like fucking crushing her opponents.
But it's like, you know, it exploits movies being like obviously a visual storytelling thing, where. Yeah, a character pops up and you just know instantly what their role is and what they're going to be. So I think with that, Dodgeball gets it again, And then we're on to dialogue, as in storytelling and context. And just with that, what I was saying about the visual story, whereas Dodgeball, like I said, from the start, you understand Peter LaFleur, you understand what's going on. He's obviously like doesn't have the money to pay for thing is going to close. You understand that Average Joe's is a gym for, you know, everything is very, very clear. Basketball, if you're looking at basketball for the first time from the start, or if you walked out of the room, I think you could kind of go, what the fuck is going on here? A few points with it. Whereas the storytelling is all over, like you said, I think your description of it was the best, where it's a bunch of sketches thrown together around a loose kind of plot.
Central premise kind of thing, Whereas, I mean, that's not to say Dodgeball as well is not like a series. There are set pieces that you're kind of like, oh my God, right.
It kind of flows better.
It does,
the storytelling is probably better with Dodgeball, because it does have that kind of, it flows, whereas with basketball it feels a bit janky and things, it feels like you could cut certain things out of basketball and rearrange it, and it wouldn't actually impact the story at all.
The same amount of sense kind of thing, you'd know where it was going. But I mean, the dialogue as well, I suppose it is very, you know, there are some very memorable lines from dodgeball, I suppose. You know, if you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball. You know, all this kind of stuff. Whereas there's no one sort of snappy line, I don't think, out of basketball that you can kind of remember.
There's funny stuff that you hear, but for some reason it doesn't, like
it's not as quotable.
It's not quotable.
Yeah.
And there's
and even if it is quotable, it's super offensive.
Yeah. And I know now kind of like what we know about Trey Parker. And because, you know, just from looking at South Park and the movies and all the different things, there's certain kind of voices and characters that he does, and certain things that they say where you kind of go, oh, they wrote that.
Yeah.
There's a lot in this where you kind of go, oh, I'd say that was ad-libbed, they contributed that, you know, that there's...
Yeah, a bit more collaborative of an effort, maybe.
With it, where, you know, it doesn't...
Yeah.
Because that's like if you look at it without knowing that it's who it's directed by, you will walk away from going, oh, it's an early Trey Parker or Matt Stone.
Yeah, of course.
Without it, you know,
it has their stamp all over it. In fairness, it does. Yeah.
But I think it probably suffers for that as well, because it probably was ad lib some of the stuff. I'd imagine a lot of the
insults and stuff.
Done by, because it has that thing where it's like, oh, you're a little bitch, and you know, there's a lot of South Parkisms. Yeah. Scattered through it. And
I do think South Park works as a cartoon. I think when you translate it over to the real world, you kind of go, ooh, that's a bit much.
Yeah,
you know?
There's just a nasty kind of feeling of it, where some of it's not funny nasty, it's just like, or it gets a little bit boring, where these guys are meant to be the people that were like getting picked on. So in Dodgeball you have these people, they don't pick on other people to make themselves feel better, whereas in this they do.
Yeah.
Whereas like there's nothing wrong with having characters like that.
Yeah, like, exactly. It's the dialogue, I suppose. As I said, I think it's more quotable. And a lot of it actually is patches of who it's Rip Torn, like, you know,
it is. Rip Torn
is used when there's a cock flavoured lollipop. You know, all of these kind of quotes.
And they're just like, what?
Oh my god.
Whereas that character Eric should be like Eric Bogdine or Borgnine but he doesn't. The only thing that's really funny with him is when he dies, and that's done really badly as well. And there is a bit where it's like what the will reading. Yeah. For that, where he's like, oh, everyone leave.
And everyone continues to say
and he's like, oh, and he starts singing I'm Too Sexy. And that's just more funny because Eric Borgnine was like always this tough guy.
Yeah, real straight-laced.
Like, and then he's doing that, so you kind of go, and that's a real David Zucker thing as well. But it's just, I don't know, I think when it does come down to the storytelling of a gang like I think Dodgeball is a lot clearer, and
it is, and I do think as well, like you said, I mean, even if you just take the opening credits example, storytelling context of the dialogue, straight away you have Vince Vaughn, as I said, walking through the gym. He has very quick, snappy interactions with everyone and establishes all the characters straight away. The same over at, like, you know, sort of White Goodman's gym. He establishes his character immediately, you know what he's about. And even like, you go to the announcers at the dodgeball tournament, you know instantly the dialogue is just there as well. You know, it's like, oh, it really is a game of two halves.
They have it done well with that. Like there's there's a lot of similarities between the two and the way that's set up. Like using the commentators to carry the story forward, but does it better in Dodgeball because they do, like, it's very succinct. You know about what Dodgeball is in about 10 seconds. Yeah. Whereas with the Baseketball commentators,
it's a bit meandering.
They're just coming out with kind of not even mad shit. It's just
non sequiturs.
Whereas with it's important for it where it's like they're like, oh, this team is from wherever, and Peter LaFleur hasn't shown up. So it's the exposition.
Exactly. Yeah.
I think Ben Stiller is very, very good at doing those things. Like he does it in Zoolander, and you know he's just. He understands cinema, I think, where it's like
the language of the film,
where it's like keep it simple, don't kind of have too much going on. Whereas I think with Basketball, even though it's not like it's fucking
it's
Gone
not
with the Wind or any shit like that. It still gets a little bit caught up in itself and trips over itself in parts. So I think that's definitely Dodgeball gets on as well. Dodgeball seems to be we're kind of halfway through.
Basketball would want to start pulling its socks up there a little bit, I think.
Well, with the cinematography, which is the visual language, lighting, setting, and wardrobe, I don't know. I think rewatch because we're not being kind of like, oh, we've got this kind of TV, but we have like
a fucking super high def TV that feels like the characters are in the room with you. And we only got it recently enough, so it's a big step up from now. Not that we were watching like an old black and white fucking 15-inch before, but it is just the kind of the high def is suddenly you're kind of like, it's almost unreal. It's so clear. And crisp.
It's like well over 60 inches. which sounds like you go,
Yeah.
"Oh my God."
But it's in our sitting room is not a huge sitting room, so you're basically, it's like sitting in a fucking cinema screen.
Yeah. So what I'm trying to say, what it is, like, if a film looks bad, it looks really fucking bad on this. If the lighting is off on it, or it looks really garish. So there's a lot of stuff we were looking at when we got it first, and we're like, oh my God,
Yeah,
this
it's
is like
just shot
terrible.
appallingly, and the lighting is terrible. And oh my God, who did the makeup on those actors? Because or who did there's all these, the costumes look desperate.
And then suddenly you look at some things that are upscaled to 4K or that are in 4K, and you kind of, wow, that looks
Yeah, that
like
holds up.
Tropic Thunder still look good.
Looked amazing. The colours, the vibrancy.
Dodgeball looked fantastic on it. It looked like a film. It had
and it had that whole feel of like a sports channel as well.
Yeah.
When, it had that transition to like, okay, these are the guys talking in the pub, and then when it goes to the Ocho, it feels like you're watching sports TV, you know, that kind of thing.
But it looks good. It's really smooth.
Yeah.
Basketball looked like a VHS rip, and I think it was like a Blu-ray version that we're looking at of it.
Again,
I know it's
that's
a
down
smaller
to budget.
movie,
Yeah, that would be down to budget.
But I think it's the lighting though. When you're looking at it, they seem to when they're playing basketball, it seems to be much more harsher lights.
Yeah.
On it. It's so that's kind of like, I think. Well, I know there's a budget aspect too, but
there is a huge budget. Like, I mean, you can be as creative as you like with lighting, but like at the end of the day, if you don't have the money to actually set the lights up, you're kind of
well, you look at something like
loss.
Suspiria would have been shot on fuck all, and that's mental. So
I know, but you're comparing, these are sports films, and it is under harsh stadium lights. It is going to look like a harsh stadium kind of, floodlight kind of effect. So I don't think there's not much you can do unless you have a huge budget to have like, we'll have the characters underlit, or we'll have this, or we'll have nice smooth film, rather than 36mm rather than fucking, as you said, maybe.
I don't know. I still think that it's just, well, budget aside, Dodgeball just looks nicer. It carries nicer. It's softer. It feels like a movie.
Yeah.
Whereas Dodgeball, Basketball,
might be a bit made for TV film kind of thing.
It has a look of a TV show about it, in parts. That's where I think it's when they're doing the sports thing, it looks very TV set or movie set, whereas in Dodgeball it looks like it's
I get that actually.
Place,
The set and the backdrop itself does look a small bit. But that's budgetary constraints.
Well, I think that's down to cinematography as well. There's ways of making things look expensive when they look like horror movies have been doing that for fucking since the birth of horror movies. They've been using
that's
like little thing. There's even put a bit of Vaseline on the lens or something else.
Yeah. And I suppose wardrobe as well. Again, I suppose Dodgeball is going to have to win it out there as well, because, as I said, you have all these different teams going through the different waves of the competition. And they all have, like, you've got like a team that are dressed as like rappers, a team that are dressed as like S&M kind of, leather daddies kind of a thing. You've got another one that's, and you can see each team as they come up, they have like, and they're like...
Well, even with Globo, Jim.
Yeah. Everyone is all shiny and like, metallic and clean and crisp and like, hard bodies and all that. And you go over then to Average Joe's and they're wearing like old ratty gym shorts and, beat up Converse sneakers kind of thing.
But with basketball, it's pretty much all that they're wearing is just like...
Yeah, that's the thing. You can't actually say with the wardrobe.
Yeah.
I mean, the wardrobe is perfectly fine for basketball. It is what it is. There isn't that much variety, and I suppose in terms of character development, because of the wardrobe, you can, of course, you can see they're kind of when they're in their civilian clothing. I suppose they're the epitome of the sort of the losers or whatever.
Yeah, but there's something to. So I suppose cinematography. Dodgeball has to get it again, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Whereas it's like Dodgeball obviously is after winning at this point. We'll go through the rest of it just to see if
see how they fare out.
Yeah, because we have to give basketball a little bit of a chance, just a little bit of a chance. And when it gets to editing is the next one.
Pace and effects.
And I think Dodgeball again, like like on the Naked Gun and stuff like that, they were edited so well. Where it's
they
like
were
quick.
Very tight. Yeah, and it was the visual gag and the move to the next scene.
Where like there was always a gag going on, but it wasn't like you'd miss a gag. Whereas in basketball, I think it's easy to miss some of the stuff that goes on in the background. Like the stuff that's going on in the foreground is so
in your face.
that like you're obviously not going to miss that. Where
Well, in fair, like, I mean, I do think as well. I mean, they had very good editing. Actually, no, I'm going to go with Baseketball in this one because there were a lot of sight gags in that I found blink and you miss them kind of a thing. So I actually quite like that in a film where you have to be paying fucking attention, and you're rewarded then by sometimes getting a laugh where maybe the rest of the audience don't pick
I
it
suppose
up.
that's the thing. There's no when you look at, say, the editing in Dodgeball, like the not the mad editing, but it comes in when they're playing the games or when they're doing like what Ben Stiller did with like Zoolander, where he's introducing people, like when it's introducing the teams, or when there's like montages going on, that sort of things, kind of.
Yeah, whiz bang effects kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Whereas like I'm more for Baseketball because like there's a couple of guys that I'm still laughing about them now, and they're so stupid and juvenile, but again they're a blink and you miss them. It's when they come over to him in the gym and or in the locker room and they're standing there all naked. Obviously they don't show anything.
I forgot about that. Yeah,
but like it's just when they turn around, there's this like big massive shadow implying they've like humongous dongs, and then
people kind of dodging
dodging back and all this kind of stuff, and like then there's a shot of their feet, and it's like you can see their feet, but there's also just a very quick glimpse of like this massive pink thing hanging, and you're like, what is that? And it's like, oh my god, they're implying their fucking cock is down to the ground. Those kind of things I thought were hilarious because they caught me as so unexpected, but it is a blink and you'll miss it, and you don't get like, oh, why is that person just ducking back a bit, and it's like, oh, because they swung around and their cock was swinging around with them.
I do think the pace of Dodgeball is better,
absolutely,
though.
yeah,
like by a long shot. Like I think the pacing of Baseketball, because it takes a while to get started, and then when it does get started, it's kind of like plods on okay, and then kind of, I don't know, there's a big drop in it. It just feels, and I think it's probably a shorter movie, but it feels a lot longer with it. There's just something about where it's just like, you get to, there's that bit where it's like nearly burnout with it.
Yeah, you want the resolution, I suppose, there. But just to be awkward, I'm going with them for editing because of all the visual gags. I think they do have a few, even simple things like the effects and stuff like that. I actually do think that the Baseketball ball itself is genius, made out of the Lazy Boy and stitched to look like, whereas there's not a huge amount of, like, the only special effect I can think of, for example, out of Dodgeball would be White in his fat days, where he's like, chubbed up kind of thing.
Yeah, and that fat suit is fairly terrible actually in it. But yeah, no, I'd give it to Baseketball as well.
I have persuaded you on that.
For the effects and stuff. And next onto the soundtrack, the sound design, the film score. And I think Baseketball probably has a better soundtrack. It's very much a kind of pop punk thing, like Real Big Fish plays on it. It's very 90s soundtrack with it. Like I quite like the tune to, I think Dodgeball is more professional with the whole thing that when Average Joe's
they have their they have their theme song, the do 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 do.
Yeah, and that pretty much just plays the whole way throughout it, other than when they're like at matches and it has all that
kind of team music as such.
Whereas like the soundtrack, I think Baseketball has a better soundtrack. There's a lot of, well, for my taste anyway. Yeah. But it fits more with the anarchy too.
That's it. I did like. I mean, as I said, Dodgeball, it's polished and it has its recognisable beats where it's like, okay, we're Average Joe, so this is the theme music for there, and over like here, and this is the music for there, and they have their whooshes and their sort of whiz bangs. But it's all very expected, and it's you don't really notice it. It's just like
it's movie.
That's it. And I know, like, apparently the sign of a good soundtrack is when or sound effects is when you don't actually, it doesn't intrude and you don't notice it. You just accept it. But I do like me some decent
sometimes
music.
It's good when things are a bit mad as well as a sound design thing, and I think you have that with a lot of weird noises coming out of Trey Parker. True. There's a lot of that kind of South Parky noise with so I think it's with the soundtrack Baseketball, I think easily over.
I do. As I said, Dodgeball is just very safe and straightforward, I think.
Yeah, and now we're getting to the big
two, I suppose.
Directing, vision and execution. Whereas, like, it's not saying that, but like everything, like we keep saying, I know it sounds like we're shitting. We don't mean to be shitting on Baseketball because it is quite good, but I think between the two, I think Baseketball is a little bit all over the place, but it has that. Well, even I was going to say it has David Zucker's style, but like it took me fucking years to realise, or to even kind of, because I never even took it in. Looking at the credits, I never even kind of like, it was only because
Didn't
it felt
register.
so much like a South Park creation that it didn't feel like a David Zucker thing. It was only looking at this time where we kind of go, oh yeah, it's got all these elements from like the Naked Gun in it, and even some of it's shot, and even the way sometimes there's certain scenes in it where it's very much like 1970s exploitation kind of from which they grew up on, and that's where they made their money, taking the piss out of things, and even with the Southern Fried Movie, but it doesn't, it's not
the
very
vision is
strong.
there, the execution is not necessarily
Yeah.
there, because you can see that it was a great idea. I think some of the gags are hilarious, but I think the actual execution of it, as you said, it was a little bit sketches hung together, and they're kind of almost as if the parts are a little bit interchangeable, so there's no through sort of narrative, I think, as well. So I think maybe that comes down to
It nearly feels like as well
execution
he
of it.
doesn't give a fuck about the way things look more so than he cares about the sketch or the gag, which, like, there's nothing wrong with that, but not when it's a big movie.
Yeah.
Like,
But then again, Baseketball wasn't a big movie at the time.
no, but they wanted it to be. It just didn't do well.
No.
It flopped massively at the box office. It got terrible reviews, like absolutely dreadful reviews. I think it's one of those things I think that had found its life on
Yeah, VHS.
and probably
DVD.
because Trey
And of
Parker
course, as if
owned it.
the
But
success
if
of
South Park didn't do well, I don't think anyone would be
No.
talking about it nowadays.
No.
Apart from a few of us that would be kind of like, oh, remember that movie? Like,
Yeah, that was hilarious.
But you wouldn't get a Blu-ray fucking
No,
copy
exactly,
of it.
yeah, that's it.
But with Dodgeball, the directing, I think now it's very easy to look at it and go, oh, it's very cookie cutter. But at the time it wasn't. It's like Ben Stiller brought those elements into it where it's shot like Zoolander. And it's that kind of MTV.
Yeah, that's a very good observation,
Yeah.
actually, I think. Yeah, it is. It does have that sort of a sudden freeze to title card where it's like,
Yeah.
a character shot with a little bit of text coming across the screen with a sort of a whoosh,
Yeah, and like a load of people copied that. Like, I think there's a lot of Marvel stuff that,
Yeah.
that they definitely with the comedy elements that they probably robbed it from. But like it seeped into every
It
comedy
is,
film.
and that's
at
probably
that
why
time.
it feels cookie cutter, is because it's
Yeah.
become so standard.
Well, but
I
at the
think, all
time
that.
it wasn't. It was like I remember when we saw Zoolander, we were like, "Fucking
Oh
hell."
my god, it's still one of my favourite
Yeah.
films.
And even with Dodgeball, like we saw this in the cinema,
Yeah.
and we got it on DVD straight away when
Yeah,
it came
and
out.
probably
like,
rewatched
but
it a number of
Yeah.
times within a couple of weeks. Like,
It was very different for its time, and it was like a bit edgy, even though it's not really edgy. But
It's
it kind of
very
felt-
wholesome, I think. But
Yeah.
there are still, like, I mean, there's a couple, I suppose, of throwaway insults and all the rest that you kind of wouldn't get away with nowadays, I suppose, if you tried to put them into a film. But
Yeah.
it does come across kind of wholesome now as well.
Yeah.
But as I said at the time, it was like,
It was very different, but like comedy
Yeah.
was in a bad place at the
Yeah.
time as well. There wasn't like you can't look back and go, oh, all these classic
the golden
comedies
age
from
of comedy,
those-
and it was that all kick-started again, the comedy sort of boom, that whole crowd, Ben Stiller, Will Ferrell, that whole thing.
I think there was a vacuum kind of after the SNL guys like Chevy Chase and
Yeah.
all that kind of went off, and it was filled a little bit by Adam Sandler for a while, but then Adam Sandler started knocking out a load of terrible movies.
Yeah, and almost kiddie kind of films and such, yeah.
So you had and I think there was like the rom-com I think
Yeah.
was doing very well at that stage.
Which is not the genre for quite a lot of people out there. It's
but
not something
rom-coms,
that...
they're not like funny.
No, they're all saccharine and
Yeah.
and it's...
They're comfort movies for a certain type of person.
Yeah.
But not that there's.
But they're
all terrible.
they're not laugh out loud, if you know what I
Yeah.
mean. It's not like you're not going to be like choking on your popcorn, like
Yeah.
laughing at it. You're going to be like, oh, how sweet. Oh, isn't it funny that they said that?
And I think like Baseketball was probably coming in at that weird moment with things. South Park definitely was,
Yeah.
where people were like, "Oh, South
Well, a
Park
bit,
is
I
like really
suppose,
offensive."
as we were sort of talking about Tom Green the last time, that whole weird kind of wacky sort of out there, the comedy of the sort of the repulsive, I suppose, as well. The how outlandish and how
It was nearly like along with the rise of Jackass that you had this different kind of comedy coming in. I don't think because SNL, I as much as people hate SNL, I think SNL can be very important for comedy because it's the people that come out.
It's the
If
spawning
they
ground.
do well,
Yeah.
they have their platform. If they're big people, and if they do well on it,
they have their connections there. They go off and they make their films. And
and some
away you go.
movies do really well, and they like I don't know why MacGruber didn't do well. It's just baffling to me.
Actually, that's a film we should do at some stage as well.
Yeah, but like Kirsten Wiig came off of it for more modern kind of things, and she did very well with Bridesmaids. And I don't know, haven't really seen her doing much since. I don't think she had the success of Bridesmaids.
No, but she has the other fairly well received films like Skeleton Twins and obviously Ghostbusters, all of that as well. Like, you know, so she's had a fairly steady like.
Oh, she's I'm not saying, but you know, it's not. She didn't like come off it like a Will Ferrell and do Will Ferrell on it. So with the directing, I don't know. It's actually hard. I think I'm going to have to call it a draw.
I was actually going to suggest that because I think the vision is there at Baseketball. I think the execution is there at Dodgeball. So it's going to have to be a 1-1.
Yeah, and the two, like, I mean, David Zucker, he's an unusual director with things. And I suppose he would have, like, the Farrelly brothers and all those would have been in, and no doubt Ben Stiller would have been influenced by.
Absolutely.
I don't think there's any comedian that could have not been influenced by, like, David Zucker and that team. But then with the it factor.
Yeah, our last sort of
one of a kind
topic.
And
transcendent. Well, basketball certainly transcends all fucking rules, doesn't it? It is very much one of a kind, I think.
It's probably surprising that it's still around, that people still remember it. With it, I can't see it kind of getting cult status and becoming like a thing where a lot of people are, oh my god, it's a genius film, or it's so, because there's too many things against it for it to kind of be a cult movie, I think, or a forgotten gem. You know, I do think like at some stage people might rediscover Coffee Town. I'd like that to happen. Yes. But I can't see it happening with this at all, because I think if people found it and then they'd be like, oh my god, these people need to be cancelled. You know?
But if you're looking at it as kind of one of a kind, Dodgeball I don't think is one of a kind, because you have like Blades of Glory, you have
but Dodgeball started all that.
I know, but I'm just saying it kind of fed into the Talladega. It's this sports movie, comedy sports movie. So you have Blades of Glory, you've got Talladega.
I suppose that's fair
Talladega
enough.
Nights. You have what was the other one? Will Ferrell had it, the basketball one as well.
Oh god, Top Shot. No, fucking. I know. I can't think of it. Yeah,
but there's a whole slew. There's a whole slew of those kind of sports films where it's like, you know, the underdog trying to strive and like all of that, and it was very much in the Dodgeball formula. So I think when you're talking about one of a kind, I don't think we've had another basketball since.
No, I think I'd agree with you. I think I'd give that to basketball, because and there is a bit of an it factor too, because for all its failings, there's still something really likeable about it. And
as well, as regards the it factor as well, for me, it's seeing Matt Parker and Trey Parker and Matt Stone actually acting as well. Yeah. Because, you know, sort of for a long time they're like the voices of like this fantastic fucking, you know, series that we love so much, but to actually see them as people out front acting,
it's very weird.
It is very,
I think for people that are probably fans that have never seen them in stuff, if you're looking at it now, seeing him doing Cartman's voice and the physicality to it.
It's like the Wizard of Oz pulling back the curtain. You suddenly see the person behind it. Now, I'm not saying that they're, you know, sort of this weird small little fella that's, you know, but it's like that. It's the pulling back the veil.
But it's the change go, oh my God. To doing Cartman as well. It's not like he's just... It's a very, very drastic change. It's like seeing him moving his head and his whole body and stuff that he... And
I can remember, because I think I had probably seen South Park before I'd seen this, and I remember when he came out with the Cartman voice, and I was just like, oh my fucking God, it's just so jarring.
But that was the weird thing with South, like... There was a lot of controversy around South Park when it came out, but not in Ireland. In Ireland, it was like really well received.
Yeah,
like,
everyone just thought it was hilarious.
Yeah, everyone was like, "Oh my god, this is great!" And like, I mean, all ages. Like, it was like put up there with the Simpsons straight. It was like, "Oh, this is a Simpsons." Yeah,
this is like a more vulgar version of the Simpsons. Yeah. But I think also a more an on the nose kind of a witty commentary on. You know, they were always. They were ahead of their time and very politically minded. And
that satire does very well in Ireland. Like a lot of, say, comedy now in Ireland is fucking atrocious. But like for a long time it was all satire in Ireland because the country was so fucking shit. That people
politics was shit, fucking, you know, economics
no one had any money. And as well, people aren't really offended in Ireland by bad language or...
That's the thing, I think sure Ireland's culture is one of like fucking having a sneer at your friend kind of a thing, you know, and it's all about like having a bit of the banter, I suppose. So people are well used to being fucking, you know, throwing slings and
Well,
barbs
like, as you
and
probably
fucking
guess
tearing
from
people
listening
down.
to us, it's like every second word is a fuck, but you don't even realise it.
It doesn't
You don't
register
get it,
as being offensive. Yeah, that's true.
And
as
like
well.
even people like shit, it would be on normal television.
Fuck has been on like, you know, daytime TV.
Yeah, I think
and
people
radio
nowadays
and
as
stuff.
well are kind of like, well, who cares?
Yeah.
Like, I think I had told you about it before. I remember years ago, for people who might be familiar, there was a film, Sylvester Stallone, Cliffhanger.
Yeah.
Ireland has its own national television thing called RTE, but it's also got like, it's one in Irish and Gaelic, the national language.
Yeah.
And so they'll have a lot of programs in Irish on that they're self-made, but as well they translate some things. I was just looking at it like 12 o'clock one day and I had Cliffhanger on, totally unedited.
Yeah.
And, it
And
was
John
just
Lithgow
like,
as well,
what
I think
the
is
fuck
yeah.
is, and this is like a weekday.
Yeah, TG Carr is actually very good for that. They just like to fill up the schedule. They throw on some film during the daytime, and it'd be something that if it was on, say, the BBC or something like that, it would be edited and fucking bleeped,
Not in
censored.
Ireland.
Yeah,
No, not in Ireland.
they're just like, yeah, off you go.
But as well, TV or TG Carr, they started out as well with they must have did some deal with HBO. And
Yeah,
this is
Oz was like on TG
because
Carr.
RT they always had shit on RT.
Yeah.
It was like, you know, we'll have like fucking. There was a thing Royark.
Oh,
where
God,
it's like,
yeah.
it was just dry fucking bollocks. But like in TG Carr, from about 9-10 o'clock on was HBO stuff. So
yeah, so
that's
it's
like
Curb Your Enthusiasm, it was
Oz,
all of that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Deadwood as
Yeah.
well, but it was like aired at the same time, and this was like a time where
Yeah, it was in prime time slots.
yeah, but like things wouldn't air at the same time as over in America. It was well before the internet. Like,
Yeah.
so what you'd have is, say it could be 2 years or 3 years fucking after something aired in America to get aired over here. So you'd be like, oh,
Yeah, at
what's
last,
going on
it's
in
come
fucking
here, yeah.
Bobby Ewing?
But yeah, that kind of got away from us a bit. But yeah, it's just, for the it factor, as I said, I think basketball has it because it's an actual treat to see those two guys out being their own
Well,
characters.
it's basketball is fun, and it is that thing with other Zucker movies and stuff where it's, you're looking out for stuff going on in the background.
Yeah.
As well, with it, where you will look at it like it's. I think with dodgeball has a comfort thing to
and
it.
it's very it leads you down the path, and it's very it's everything is up front. There's a psych will be up front and centre, whereas like with this it's a lot more anarchic, as you said. It's stuff going on in the background, and if you blink and you miss it, and it's a bit more edgy. I think
dodgeball is inoffensive, so it's like, you can put it on for anyone.
Yeah, throw it on for the family.
Basketball
at Christmas time.
is offensive, and it's meant to be offensive, and it's good in an offensive
you
way.
need offensive stuff.
With it, it's just that when you're like objectively.
Is that the word you're
that's
trying
what
to say?
I keep hearing a lot of kind of people saying about it. Objectively this and object. And it's like, I don't think you actually understand what objectiveness is, because
everything is subjective for the most part. This whole thing is subjective. Like it's our opinion on things.
It's like you might be trying to use
certain criteria.
But it's still your opinion on it. It's not like you can measure fucking stuff like that. So when it comes down to movie reviews or people's opinion, it's a qualitative kind of version. It's not. You can throw in quantitative elements. And this is the thing I used to do when I was studying science. That you will have people that in certain softer kind of things that wouldn't even consider science. They throw in quantitative elements into it to try and make it
sound more legitimate,
or that they're kind of like, putting in measurements into it, where it's like, you're not really.
Yeah.
And
this is what we're doing.
This is what we're doing. But we're not saying it's scientific.
Yes.
It's just to help us kind of be a bit fairer.
Yes, exactly. Rather than going, no, I feel that I like this film more, so therefore I'm going to go with
this. Well, because with this, I would, if we weren't doing this, I think I would have a hard time picking which one is my favourite over the two. Like, I do like, I'd like both, but basketball, sometimes I would be more in the mood for that.
It depends on what you're in the mood for. Sometimes you want that little, it's almost like your comfort blanket is like sitting down on the sofa with a hot cup and wrapped in a snuggly blanket and that kind of nice humour, whereas sometimes you want to put on your spiky leather jacket to go out and offend people.
But like when you do go through a list of things on it, and you can kind of you can kind of say, it might be kind of like it's technically a better movie.
Yeah, well, in fairness, basketball didn't fare out too badly. We got 4 categories where we kind of... it kind of did pretty well. Lost out on a few, alright. So I suppose if we're coming to summarise and recap, dodgeball, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 categories that we went, that's good. Dodgeball was 4. Obviously that adds up to more than 10, but remember we had a draw in one of our categories for directing, for the vision and execution. So overall, on a technical criteria, dodgeball wins out.
Yeah, dodgeball. Yeah.
But basketball has a special place in our hearts.
If basketball was up against a different movie,
if basketball is up against, as I said, a League of Their
Schindler's
Own
List
or
or
something
some
like
other
that, basketball would win out over
Yeah.
that for sure.
well, I don't know. I'm kind of quite partial to League of Their Own. See, it's just because you're a misogynist.
Yeah, that's me all over.
Yeah.
Now I better go get back in the kitchen for myself.
Yeah. Yes, make yourself go to the kitchen. But yeah, so I think the winner this week is Dodgeball.
Yes.
With it. So yeah, look, thank you for making it this far and listening the whole way through. As you can see, we're on YouTube, we're on Spotify, and all the other
The usual
things. Yeah, it'd be great if you did listen to this the whole way through. If you could like just even give us a thumbs up or kind of give a review or something
Or a
like
middle
that,
finger
or
or
kind of
something.
like subscribe, as people say. It really helps the channel grow, whatever that means. But yeah, look, until next week.
Same bad time, same bad channel.
Yeah, thank you and goodbye.
Dodge your wrench.
Mm-hmm.